a principle being set that subjective truth can take precedence over objective truth.
That was what they just said in that clip that with the doctor. She was like, whose truth are we talking about?
Exactly. That's, again, like you're saying, that's a principle that if that's accepted, then like half of what we know goes down the drain, basically.
It's around the 10-year anniversary of me practicing, bro. How did I go from a worldview that accepted rule breaking as the norm and should be valued to literally worrying about, I've just put my sock on, but my shoe is on the other side of the hall. Do I take a step with just one sock on, or do I take my sock off? And because the Prophet ﷺ advised us to either have both on or not on. When it comes to the abortion thing, and I'm not giving a statement here of what.
No, bro, I am, bro. I'm fed up, bro. I'm giving.
But I'll tell you what. I don't know if you ever came across that news article of that anti-abortion woman in America who was caught by police of having fetuses in her possession. Yeah. But now it's almost like, wait, you don't support that person? Why don't you support that person? Well, I can't. I mean, it's against my religion, you know? I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I can't celebrate that. It's against my religion to do so. Yeah. No. But that means you're denying them the right to existence. You're denying them their truth. Sorry, I thought you'd already...
Okay. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My mic etiquette is now going to improve from every episode on. This
Inshallah.
Is how it will be.
One thing we do, actually, we record our audio individually, so it can always boost things and stuff. But anyway, this is episode 163, I think, man.
Yes.
Alhamdulillah, good stuff. And just got back from the United Kingdom.
Yes. We had an amazing meeting.
I went for the Jubilee, of course.
Yes.
Yes, for the special celebration.
My son will not, I mean, it's over now, but my son will not stop talking about the Jubilee. It must have been all they were teaching him at school for a few weeks.
Yeah.
Every day he's talking about it.
It's one of those themes, I think, like, oh, let's do maths Jubilee. Let's do English Jubilee. You know, they try and mix it in with everything, isn't it? Maybe. Yeah.
It's like 2 months ago he was talking about it, and then like a week before he was drawing pictures of it, like drawing pictures of the Queen and stuff. And I was like, dude, they've taught you anything else?
That's messed up, man. I was surprised how, I think it was on the day, I'm not sure, or maybe it was just like, I don't know which day it was, to be honest. I just know there were a few bank holidays. But there were people actually having like these, people decorate their houses, isn't it, based on that. Did you see any of that?
Yeah,
I was surprised by that.
I was driving down the street and I told my wife, hey, look, it's just like Tunisia. There's flags everywhere.
Yeah.
And you know, they're like North African countries. And that's something that, to be fair, I feel like society, because of diversity and multiculturalism, we've muted the patriotic nature of this country because we have an aversion to seeing flags. You know, like if I see a St. George's flag, I honestly feel something. Like I'm like, ooh, what's that about?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's like you don't link the English flag to England. You link it to like EDL or something.
Yes. So like I had a neighbor in my mum's house who he's typically so anti like immigration and stuff. Although he seems to be okay with us. But when we first moved there like 20 odd years ago, you know, he was fine, and well, he wasn't fine, but he kind of warmed to us. But yeah, he put up not too long ago like a St. George's flag in his back garden, and we were just like, typical. Of course he would. So yeah, but it shows you, because if you go to, you know, I'm sure Algeria is the same. I think it was the same. Tunisia, Morocco, those places that we're familiar with. It's like you can never forget what country you're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's like hundreds of your national flag everywhere.
Bro, you know? Whatever you saw in Tunisia, Algeria, whatever, it's more in Turkey.
Do you think so?
It's more, yeah. It's crazy. Wow. There's like big, huge flagpoles. Like just in this one neighborhood, there are 2 huge, big flagpoles with flags. And there's the flag inside the masjid.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And that no one crosses that line, I think, in other countries. But in Turkey, they put the flag in the masjid and on the masjid.
Oh, subhanAllah. I don't know about that. I remember even vividly at school, back when I was at school in Tunisia, we had like every morning, bro, you'd have like a ceremony where they would like, everyone would line up outside in the playground, and there'd be people that have to like fold the flag in a particular way and then put it up.
Sing the anthem, all that.
Yeah. Not that I knew anything about the anthem or how to fold the flag, but I remember at least.
This was in Tunisia, you're saying?
Yeah, I do recall.
So you
I
don't know
if it
the
was every
anthem?
day. No. At that time, I didn't.
Oh, okay.
I know bits of it now, but hey, that's not a test of my Islam, bro. So I
Nah.
don't need to know that. No, but yeah, bro.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so there were
question.
people like doing like Jubilee dinner parties or something. I saw people in their garden with all the decorations, and it must have invited people. I was like, yo, that's interesting. And then I was like, yeah, that's like a manufactured kind of celebration holiday thing, right? And then I was like, yeah, they're really good at that in UAE. It's very similar because in UAE they manufacture history and celebrations and these things. And then I was like, well, yeah, they do the same in the UK.
Yeah, I suppose. I think to be honest, like my mother-in-law, being British, she spoke about how she used to do it when she was younger and stuff, and it's something that has existed for some time.
Oh, really?
I
Okay.
I can't recall it in my memory, but it's probably happened, and you know, I don't know how many years they do it. I'm assuming they do 50 years, and this is 70 years, isn't it? So maybe the last one was 50 or something like that. Maybe they do it by quarter, you know. 25 years, 50 years, 75, something like that. Maybe that's the way they do it. I don't know.
Yeah. I was looking out for signs of inflation when I was in the UK, but I think because I live in Turkey, anything less than like 20% increase doesn't register with me.
Yeah.
It's crazy. But I'm sure it's there, right?
Yeah, we had a little chat in the Telegram group, which everybody should join if they haven't done already, about that. You know, what was it? I bought 4 ice creams, 2 cans of drink, 4 ice creams, 2 cans of drink,
Yeah.
and 2 fruit shoots, or at least fruit shoot style drinks for the kids, and it cost me £18.
Yes.
18. I was just like, subhanallah. Now, yes, it was at a beachside cafe, but it's not a beach like a touristic beach. It's my local beach, which I live in a small sort of village, so it's not necessarily, jam-packed with tourists. But yeah, that kind of blew me away.
I feel like everywhere in the UK is like that, right? No matter how big the tourist attraction is, anything that's like a beach or a, even national park kind of thing, anything like that, the people selling there will have hike things up.
Yeah,
right?
possibly. Yeah,
it feels like. I mean, on one hand, you've got a lot of free things you can enjoy in the UK, right? Like, sometimes I just think about, these trekking trails they have, right? They've set it up. They make sure the sign's correct. Like, that requires maintenance and stuff, right? Like, that's all free, right? So they have some cool free things. But at the same time, to do a lot of things, it costs a lot of money, innit?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at least air is free.
Yeah,
even water's expensive. Bro, if they could make you pay for air, wow. Let's work on that. Mind Heist business proposition.
It'll come to China first, I think.
Bro, there's people, I've seen it, viral videos of people selling air.
Yeah,
I've seen, so it's not completely out of the question.
What was I gonna say? Yeah, so how much would that be in a normal shop though? The same things.
I mean, I was expecting £10 maximum.
Okay.
So
that's how much it would be.
Even that's too much. I don't think that should cost more than £8 really. But whatever, it is what it is. I just remember, like, because he goes, "Oh, you don't have a bag? Let me give you a box." He gave me a cardboard box. I put everything in there, and he tallied it up, and he said, "Oh, that's £18." And I kind of froze there with the box in my hand, and I was just like, "Well, it's too late now. I can't just take everything out of this box that I'm holding."
Yeah.
And I just like quietly got my card out and really reluctantly. Anyway, yeah.
I went to Pret in the airport. This is airport, of course. I got 3 items and it was £10.
Oof.
But it didn't.
That's the tax for being here, bro. That's the tax for being here, not seeing me.
Yeah, man. I was in and out quite quickly. It doesn't sting me as much because, like, I know that it's just for a temporary period that I'm paying these prices, But
You're on holiday. Spend.
At the same time, bro, like many people have told me that the UK is actually one of the cheapest places in Western Europe.
Yeah.
Like,
Really?
especially for food, yeah. Like France, Italy, Spain, all that, they're much more expensive than the UK.
Maybe. Yeah.
And I remember, like, as well, like, even the bills, not rent maybe, but like electricity, for example, it's quite cheap from what I know.
Not anymore. Absolutely.
Would that depend on the area in the UK, or it's pretty much the same every year?
I think it's hard because I've never lived up north, but I know there was people in the Telegram group that were saying like certain things about being up north was cheaper in general. But I think with everything that's going on, the prices like tripled or doubled or tripled for energy bills, and that happened to me for sure. So
I just remember like this wasn't like London or South or anything, but I remember that I was spending about £30 a month on electricity. Like that's low, right?
Well, mine went from around 70 when I moved in to now 151. And it's just like, well, thanks guys, appreciate that.
That's just recently in one go or gradually?
No, so there was like a time where it was like a normal increase where it went up to like 81 or something.
Yeah.
And then when everything happened with all this Russia, Ukraine stuff, at least that's what they were pointing it to.
Yeah.
It went to, double almost or whatever.
Yeah.
150 something.
Yeah. I mean, a few people have been talking about that and talking about how Western Europe, it's going to be difficult, basically. Germany, UK, everyone who's relying heavily on gas from Russia is going to struggle in that way.
Yeah, there's all sorts of initiatives and stuff they're coming up with. They're trying to alleviate that, I think, at least on the news. But I don't pay too much attention to it, only because there's always talk on the news about this stuff, isn't there? And what can you do? You just kind of have to mosey along and see what happens.
The thing with these things is, if you, let's say your bills double, let's say your bills were, I'm not talking about shopping, just bills, right? £500 and it becomes £1,000, like, I just think generally the focus should be on making more money. That doesn't mean you don't like lobby people to not increase and blah blah blah, right? But making an extra £500 is not insane.
Depends though. If you're already working a full-time job,
of course,
and then
but this is okay. When it comes to the job, it's about thinking over like a 5-year window and thinking, look, I need to increase my income by X% over those years. Yeah, it's not going to be like 1 month you're earning 2,000, next month you're earning 2,500. Not like that. Yeah. But it's like we've always got to be aware that as people who are not sitting on like 10 million cash or whatever more than that, we're always going to be we're in the crosshairs, of inflation and other things. And so it's like if we stay stagnant and idle, we're going to be priced out of stuff. Like no,
of course, and that's what motivates people to move and do stuff. At least it does for me. I'm definitely way more motivated when I'm struggling than I am when I'm comfortable.
But I think what I was pointing to is making £500 more a month is easier than if your, for example, income tax increased, right? Because when it's a percentage of your income, that's way harder to recover from. But when it's like a fixed amount and it's a few £100s, it's relatively easier. That's the context I was saying it in.
That's it. You're going to give us the how to survive in Britain masterclass from Turkey, yeah? That's how it is.
No, it's
get
just
out.
Because
basically. That's what your advice is going to be. Get out.
No, I mean I'm kind of saying you could get out, but you could make more money as well. But it does seem quite difficult. I'm not going to lie.
No doubt. Right, bro.
Yeah.
I had a question to ask you, bro.
Go on.
I mean, you wrote the book on masculinity. Okay. Yeah, that's it. He's flexing. For the listeners, audio listeners, he's flexing. Bro, can you tell me what is a woman?
Don't make me say it, bro.
Please, can you just tell me? Because I've been trying to figure it out, bro, for a long, long time. No, what we're referring to is that documentary by Matt Walsh, which has kind of gone a little bit viral. Not as viral as it could have gone if it wasn't behind a paywall. So,
I mean, I got to give it to them, man, because I never heard of this guy before, and maybe you hadn't either, right? But now I know him, you know him. Sergej Lipom did a video on him. Like, it's quite big.
You know how they complain about? I say they. I'm talking about like people complaining about YouTube algorithms and how like it's an echo chamber of right-wing content. Bro, as soon as I started watching one Matt Walsh video, just my YouTube algorithm just shifted. It suddenly became this right-wing sort of everything was getting thrown at me. Ben Shapiro's there, Jordan Peterson's in there, Matt Walsh. Every single video of his is getting popped up again and again and again.
I told you, bro, guns are illegal in the UK, man. But you're browsing.
Bro, honestly, the algorithm just didn't take too long to switch up for me. And that was on Twitter as well.
Really?
So, yeah. And anyway, so I have seen him before, actually, on another viral video. Although I didn't know his name at the time, but only now do I realize, oh, this is him and this is what he does. Essentially, as simple as it sounds, the question that I asked you is essentially the question that the documentary revolves around. And have you seen anything from it? What were your thoughts?
Absolutely, bro. I saw
seen it all now.
No, not the whole thing. I saw the first, I believe the first 15 minutes was on YouTube. And then, like, you sent me that interview. I saw about 3 of those kind of mini interview things.
Yeah, I think all of the main stuff, I say the main stuff, but the talking points are all there. Like, everyone who he has interviewed, more or less, mostly anyway, has been clipped now. There are a few that haven't. There's definitely some that haven't, actually, now that I remember it. But halfway through, anyway, let's give it a bit of a description of what it is. Sajid Litham did a video on this, actually, he actually broke it down. So without really having to watch the whole thing, I think he does a decent job of just explaining it anyway. But essentially, what he's challenging here is the trans sort of perception of womanhood.
Third wave feminism.
Not just, well, it's not really feminism, is it? It's challenging those who identify as a woman yet not being biologically born as a woman, and trying to ask them what a woman is. Because if you identify as something, it's basically me saying, I identify as a man. Can I say what a man actually is? If I can't, then what am I identifying as? Otherwise, like a circular argument, etc., etc. Anyway, long story short, that leads on to other things where you've got discussions of those who identify as animals, those who identify as all sorts of stuff, and all it is just asking these simple questions and then seeing people get very, very stuck. Now, what else is interesting is that halfway through the documentary, or maybe 3/4 through, it gets very, very dark. It starts talking about like the origins of all of these movements and like the psychologists and figureheads behind them, and they're all black and white photos, so it was a long time ago.
Any names that you remember?
Oh, there's one called Kinsey.
Okay.
Bro, let me just do a quick Google search. Apparently they even made a movie about him.
Okay. Kinsey.
Yeah, psychologist. Oh, Kilo India November Sierra Echo Yankee.
Alfred Kinsey.
Yes, that's the one. American biologist. Now, I haven't obviously looked up. It looks like some of his works were from like the 20s to the 50s. I haven't looked up all of the claims in relation to, what was said in the documentary, but like some of the stuff that he was doing in terms of experiments and stuff were insane. They were like on young children. And when I say young, like I think 3 months was the youngest I can remember. I could be wrong, or 3 years old. I remember seeing a 3 in there somewhere. And bro, when I say he was conducting like sexual experiments or stuff like that, of that nature, I don't even want to go into detail.
It says here that he filmed sexual acts which included co-workers in the attic of his home as part of his research. And basically, people speculated that it was driven by his own basically desires, and it's not really research.
Well, that was the light stuff, I assume, because the darker stuff was even worse. You know, and it definitely involved children and stuff. Yeah. But anyway, so that stuff really horrified me, and I was like, wow, that's insane, and I never knew that, because it is easy to just accept these movements for the fact that they exist, but not necessarily know how they came about. But anyway, I was wondering if I could share a clip with you. Should we watch a clip?
Yeah, bro.
Should we react?
Do that.
That's a reaction channel now. Right, cool. Let me see. Hopefully, this should all be pretty
PG.
Pretty PG, because it's coming on my Twitter account. Can you see? Are we up? Are we launching?
Yes. Yeah.
Right, I think we'll watch this one. Here we go. This one was an interesting one. They say that a slippery slope wasn't real. I discovered otherwise while filming Why is a Woman. So let me get this to the start. It's not that long. Maybe we'll stop pausing. Oh, there we go.
So now we are seeing kids that are identifying as animals going to school, and they are purring instead of answering questions, and they meow. And the teachers are not allowed to question it because it's considered a queer identity.
So you have kids that are going to school and they're saying, I'm a cat.
Mhm.
And the teachers have to affirm them as a cat.
Yes. So it's
So
not
schools
just
are literal.
What do you think of me?
I remember, bro, a few years ago, there was I believe it was a woman in Sweden who said she's a cat. Do you remember that? I think that went semi-viral. That's one level. But if this is true, that it's happening on the level where schools, like teachers, are kind of formally kind of being okay with it, then that's definitely a next level.
Well, this is it. I'm not going to play the audio for this, but in the background, they're basically what's playing is when he's interviewing someone.
A wolf, bro. A real wolf.
Well, it's a trans wolf. It's a
Bro, you know,
biological male that transitioned into a female wolf, I think.
Oh my God. I didn't really think about that. So it's a man who's pretending to be half wolf and half woman, basically.
I wouldn't say pretending, bro. I'm saying he is. I'm saying he, she is. They are. That's
But
what
they're
I'm trying to
not,
say.
bro.
Well, this is what the documentary explores.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, it's nuts. But I don't think, like this interview with the wolf woman or whatever, yeah, woman or man or whatever it is. I don't buy that person deep down believes it's true. I don't buy it.
Yeah, but it's the pressures of demanding that is what you identify me as.
Of course, yeah.
This is we'll look at this one because we'll look at this one as the last one, which is the more popular clip with 3.1 million views. Okay. This is the one that kind of went mostly viral. So let's.
Oh yeah, this one, dirty one.
Male gametes. That's what makes me male.
No, your sperm don't make you male.
Then what does?
It's a constellation.
In reality.
Bro, I could not stop laughing when they said it's a constellation. It's a constellation.
What is that?
That reminds
Stars.
me of. Did you ever see that Will Smith issue with his wife when his wife was cheating on him or whatever, and she called her relationship an entanglement?
Oh right, yeah.
It's a constellation.
Asma and Sammaytumuha, yeah.
Absolutely. Anyway.
In truth, okay?
Whose truth are we talking about?
The same truth that says we're sitting in this room right now, you and I.
No, you're not listening.
If I see a chicken laying eggs,
She killed him though with that. She killed him the way she responded. That was good. No, she just that was so patronizing. It was sick.
He was like a 3-year-old getting talked down to.
Yeah.
Female chicken laying eggs. Did I assign female, or am I just observing a physical reality that's happening in the world?
Does a chicken have gender identity? Does a chicken cry?
Well,
Does a chicken commit suicide? Let's frame it because you're trying
to. Chicken has sex like any biological
chicken has
organism.
an assigned gender, but a chicken doesn't have a gender identity.
So we assign female to chickens when they lay eggs?
We assume they're female if they lay eggs.
Okay. Who was that again? Let me see. Did they share what her position is? I can't remember.
She was the one who was doing the basically helping people to do the transition stuff, doing surgery and all that.
No, she wasn't doing the surgery, but I think she was like a gender affirmation something.
Yeah, but she was prescribing drugs and stuff.
Oh yeah. Anyway,
she is a doctor, basically. She's a doctor.
Yeah, she was a doctor. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's enough sharing. I'm not going to show all the clips, but that gives you. Oh look, we have to fix this, don't we? There we go. That gives you a little insight. Maybe we should react to stuff more, bro. That was funny.
Yeah. The thing I'm wondering about this, because I watched quite a few of the clips and stuff. I get a gist of what he's doing with it. I think it was pretty cool that he seemed to go into it in a very non-confrontational way, like literally just asking questions, and he was a bit sarcastic, but not very sarcastic, right?
Yeah.
So that was cool, and I think like maybe if Muslims were to do something like this, like we can learn from that, because these people they kind of kill themselves with their own answers. You don't need to push them, okay?
Yeah.
My thinking though is when I'm watching this, I'm like, look, this is nuts, this is crazy, but I was just struggling to put it into a context of how much this is having an effect on even somewhere like the UK, right? Like I understand if you tell me this is an issue in California, I would say, yeah, okay, probably. But if you tell me even like somewhere else in the US, I don't know. Like, what do you think? What's your perception of that?
So I've noticed that through speaking to people in the Telegram group, through speaking to Muslims online, through speaking to Muslims in London, a lot of Muslims live in community bubbles where they don't actually notice the stuff that's happening around them or outside of their kind of locale. A lot of people that just live in London think the rest of the country is just green fields and nothing going on, right? And there's similar pockets of Muslims like that, concentrations of Muslims in Birmingham, in Manchester, Luton, that kind of Bradford, I suppose, and obviously London, I think we already mentioned. So everywhere else, there are things going on. There are things going on. But
aren't the cities the center of where these kind of things happen?
Because in a city, you could literally be in a bubble that's fenced off.
Okay, I understand. Yeah.
You could be, what's the difference between Bank and Leighton? And I only say that because I spend a lot of time in Leighton, and I remember once getting on the tube, popping up in Bank, and I was like, oh, I felt like I was in New York.
Yeah, Bank is nuts, bro.
I was like, what's going on over here? I remember the first time I went there, I had some appointment or something. So it just shows you that really and truly, you could be in the country, but in an absolute bubble. Now, my experience down south, where there's a lot less Muslims, where I do live in a very, liberal kind of, some people call it the San Francisco of the UK, right? I see this stuff all the time, to the point where I just feel like this is the whole world.
But when you say this stuff, what do you mean exactly? Because I'm guessing you don't see the wolf stuff, right?
I wouldn't know unless I spoke to them. But if I looked at someone from a distance, I'd be like, well, there's some sort of identity thing going on
Confusion,
there.
Okay. Really?
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know what it could be. It could be anything. Unless I go speak to that person, I won't really know what they identify as.
Yeah.
But, discussions about pronouns, discussions about, transitions, about how someone identifies, etc.
Yeah.
Like that not only... because you got to remember, I don't necessarily mix with anyone outside of work.
Okay.
I don't. But this stuff is still finding its way in work and schools and stuff like that. Now, my son is, he's 5 years old. He's in reception. We get lesson plans and stuff. They haven't necessarily gone into that, but you can have a look at what the future lesson plans are for the years. They send them out for the whole year group. We shared it in the Telegram, didn't we?
Yeah.
And you can see, okay, well, when they're 10 years old, this is what they're going to be talking about. This is what they're going to be discussing.
Yeah.
I speak to my sisters who are younger than me. I mean, she's the youngest is 18, but even when she was in school, she would mention stuff like this, some stuff that isn't too dissimilar from these clips that we reacted to. Yeah. But bro, the reason why I said that I mentioned this in the Telegram in response to your question of how much is this happening, is all it has to do is happen once, because there is no barrier to it stopping based on the current perceptions of what equality and diversity is in this country. Because what will happen is you'll keep pushing for equality for everything. If you accept something as normal, or accept whatever ideology or whatever identifiers as normal, and the fact that you can self-identify despite that being at odds with your assigned gender at birth or whatever, then actually you always are pushing a threshold into really and truthfully long-term anarchy and chaos, because it doesn't stop. It will never stop. Because who are you to question what someone identifies as? That's for the first. If you set that as a principle, who are you to question? Then where does it stop? It never does. It will continue forever.
I guess if I can be a woman, then I can equally be a cabbage, innit?
Eventually. And I know it sounds ridiculous now. And that was one of the clips. I'd bring it up, but one of the things that Matt Walsh does do is he interviews someone who's behind surgeries. So they do all the transition surgeries and stuff. Now they themselves state they have a trans history, but they now identify as a woman. not a trans woman, but an actual woman. But if we had a time machine, essentially what we would see is that at one point they were a man. So that's the way I'm going to phrase it, okay? So they are involved in actual surgeries, the actual carving up of people, the actual adjustments to those organs, etc. They stated that that's completely normal and that's something they facilitate. Matt asked them, I'm saying Matt like he's my best friend. Matt Walsh asked them, okay, well, how about there's these people, they're called transableists, and they believe that they should have been born with one arm. They feel like they should have one arm or one leg or some sort of disability. And would you advocate for us to chop their arm off essentially to achieve that aim, that identity that they believe they have and are? And this person was like, no, that's like a mental health issue. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And it's up to you whether you want to say that is what this person identify as the same correlation as someone who's transabled. Is someone who's transgender the same as someone who's transabled? I'll leave that for the viewers and listeners to decide.
Well, there's a principle, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
There's a principle being set that subjective truth can take precedence over objective truth.
And
right?
that was what they just said in that clip with the doctor. She was like, whose truth are we talking about?
Exactly.
And
that's, again, like you're saying, that's a principle that if that's accepted, then like half of what we know goes down the drain, basically.
It also makes da'wah difficult as well. You could be on the street talking to someone who's irreligious, not necessarily from any religion, and you say, well, listen, I want to talk to you about the truth, the haqq, right, which we objectively know is one particular thing, right, one particular path. But they'll be like, but that's your truth, okay? My truth is different. The way I see the world is different. And that'll be it. There'll be no exploration. Because, I remember when I was really young, bro, maybe 9, 8 years old, I was at school, and I remember, despite being so young, I had a discussion with someone about heaven and Islam, right? And I didn't know too much about Islam. But he asked me what he thinks, paradise and heaven is. So I kind of gave him an explanation. You can have whatever you want, etc., etc. And he was like, I believe that anyone that dies, they go to their version of heaven. Like, everybody has their own version. So, like, a Hindu would have his version of heaven, a Jew would have his version, a Christian, etc., etc. And everybody gets to go to their own version. And it's just like, it reminds me of that kind of, well, what's his truth kind of thing. Oh. There is no objective truth. It's just everyone has their own truth, and that's the reality for them. Reality can be wherever I want, as Thanos said in a very famous movie. But yeah, bro. So it makes things difficult when there's no reality. If you can remove objective reality from people can do and be and say whatever they want, really.
Yeah. Okay, question for you.
Uh-huh.
So I understand what you're saying is that a lot of people, especially in the UK, especially in certain communities or places like what you've described where you're based, people are going to fully be on board with, if this man wants us to call him she or whatever, we'll do that, right? If this man feels more comfortable going to a woman's bathroom, then we'll allow that. You're going to the Matrix.
I was going to say, do you want to take the red pill?
Yeah. So I understand, right, like catering to those people, because if that's what they want to do and it's not harming me, then we should go with it. Yeah. And then the narrative comes of, if you don't cater to that, you're discriminating, and then they become a marginalized group, and then they get all those kind of treatments that marginalized groups get. So I understand that could be a generalized phenomenon in the UK. What do you think how widespread that is versus the concept that truth is subjective?
Oh, God. So let's break that down. So truth being subjective is one issue. And then how widespread is it that we have to accept basically what people want in terms of identity? Is that the question?
How widespread is people accepting this trans stuff versus actually believing that truth is subjective?
So,
because one is a bigger leap than the other, isn't it?
The protected characteristics in the Do you know about legislation?
Going for the law now.
Yeah, I'm going to go into for the legislation just to prove a point.
Yeah.
So it's against the law to discriminate against anyone because of a set of protected characteristics in the UK. All right. You know, age is one of them, sex is one of them, religion or belief is one of them. So this is stuff that we rely on as well as Muslims. We rely on this legislation to continue to live normal lives. Okay. Now, the problem is we have issues where some of these things clash because you've got sex is one of the things you can't discriminate against, but then gender reassignment is also something that has been added on. And I need to look up when gender reassignment was added on. I think it might have been 2010.
Oh, a while ago.
I know the Equality Act generally came into effect in 2010, as far as my knowledge is. I just can't remember if gender reassignment has always been the case. Has always been part of that. But even if it was just 2010, let's just say, it happened in 2010. Because I know from memory, Equality Act 2010. So, but 2010, when was that? 2010 for me was like, I was at college and I went to uni in 2012. So yeah, I might have just started college, etc. So for me, no wonder I'm not aware of all this stuff happening, because it only started getting into legislation until after I left. Okay. So suddenly now this is part and parcel. If it's in legislation, bro, then it doesn't really matter whether you accept it or not, or whether it's prevalent or not. It will be, because it's there. Now, going back to sort of what you were saying, what I was saying at least, we rely on that Equality Act to you know, okay, let's say I go to a particular job. Excuse me, boss, I want to work here, but I have to pray 5 times a day. Is that something that you can allow? And let's say it's practical. There's no practical objections to doing so. Let's say you work in an office and you can literally pray next to your desk, right? No, I'm not hiring you. I don't want any of that. Oh, well, then I can go to the Equality Act and challenge that. Yeah. Okay. And 100 other things that you could probably go for. Yeah. However, when at what point does the discrimination against religion, but then that very religion being at odds with another form of characteristic, when does who wins that battle, so to speak? And I think that's the issue that we've got, because we've got this, there's one thing to tolerance is one thing, right? I live my life, you live yours. You've got your own choices to make about yourself, I've got my choices to make about myself. And I think pre-2010, I think that was really the norm. And even for me, for a long time, that's the point that I thought we reached, and that's where we were going to settle. I thought we would settle at, listen, I don't agree with what you're doing, but feel free to do whatever you want to do. I've got no right to say what you can and can't do. However, don't bring me into that arena. I don't believe in that. Yeah. But now it's almost like, wait, you don't support that person? Why don't you support that person? Well, I can't. I mean, it's against my religion, I mean, you can do whatever you want, but I can't celebrate that. It's against my religion to do so. Yeah. No. But that means you're denying them the right to existence. You're denying them their truth. No, I'm not denying anything. I'm not. Hey, do you? But just don't drag me into it. Well, you don't want to put pronouns in your bio. Well, why should I? I believe in my faith and my belief in my worldview that I don't need to put pronouns in. Oh, but that means you're saying that people. It's like, by extension, you're saying that pronouns shouldn't be a thing. You're getting dragged into this thing. So there's real workplace debates all over the country. I've spoken to lots and lots of people about whether pronouns should be mandatory. Right, in like email signatures, should they wear them in badges? Should it be something that everybody kind of states? 100%, bro. There's been obviously debates about certain, you've got pride events going on and stuff, and is that
was it gender neutral toilets, right?
Yeah, and also there's a societal pressure. If everyone is celebrating a particular thing, and you're not, what does that say about you? So let's say everyone in the organization out pressure is doing it. Yeah. And you just choose not to.
Now you're anti.
Where does that put you? Now you're anti, because if you're not for, you're against. There is no in between.
Yeah. George Bush, bro. You're either with us or you're against us.
And there's that gender neutral toilet. You brought that up. I mean, was that something brought up? I think it was brought up in this documentary, but I've seen it somewhere else as well. But I definitely, I went to the hospital with my wife recently, and she needed to use the toilet. Okay, she went down the hallway. I said, I'll wait for you here. She came running back to me. She goes, I can't find a toilet that isn't, mixed or whatever. I was like, well, what can we do? Like, you're going to have to use that one. We've got no choice, right? But it just shows, like, that's just the way it is, Now I don't know if that's because they're forcing and that's it, or it's a practical issue. They'd rather have one that's mixed than have two that they can't facilitate for.
So what you're saying is that you're saying basically people have to, or they're going to end up accepting that truth is subjective because it's kind of part and parcel of the laws.
It starts with the law,
yeah,
but because there's no end. The law doesn't define an end. That's the issue. Okay?
Yeah.
So the law's already opened the floodgates when it said gender reassignment as part of the protected characteristics. Okay.
Yeah. So you can't say that. Just to be practical, Yanni, I can't say, like, if someone comes and says, they're a man, but they're like, no, I'm a woman. You have to call me a woman, and you have to call me she and stuff. Yeah. So I could say, I will call you a woman, and I will refer to you as she, but I don't believe it's true. Yeah. If I say that, you're saying that's potentially like discriminating and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because it's one truth versus another. Okay. Am I lying if I firmly believe that you're not a woman? Like, even Islamically, and this is a question for a scholar, it's not for me, but the question is out there. If I know that something in my belief is untrue and I refer to you, number one, am I lying by trying to affirm that? Number two, am I assisting you in your lie by collaborating with you?
That's a whole other.
You see where it gets complicated. Now, it's
fish.
easy for a Muslim to just try and abstain from those situations completely.
Yeah.
But it's also difficult to navigate. One thing, like, subhanAllah, that Matt Walsh does do is he goes to I think a Maasai tribe in Africa. I can't remember what country it was specifically.
Kenya must be, no?
I think it was Kenya. I think it was. And I'm just trying to remember if it was the Maasai, but I believe it was. Either way, he poses these questions to them. What if this and what if that? And then they're like, no, this doesn't exist, and this doesn't exist in our culture and whatever. But essentially, the conclusion he actually states, which I always thought, is like, look at these people. They don't waste any brain space in trying to figure this stuff out because they don't have time for it. Because they're not allocating time to these thoughts because they're busy with other stuff. Their duties as men and as women, their duties and responsibilities, and this tribe and their livelihood, etc., etc., etc. And it brought me to a conversation I had with my wife after we watched the documentary. I was just like, we're in the downfall phase of societies when we say that, what was that saying? Like, weak men create bad times create strong men create good times, but good times create weak men, So we've had the good times in the West, which have created weakness and allowed people who are in excessive comfort to think about these things deeply because they've got time to, because they've got all the stuff, all the pleasures of society they've already got, all the comforts they've already got. So they've got all the time in the world to think deeply about all these things that no one necessarily had time to think about before, or question before, or delve into before. Let's say, for example, you were living in a very difficult time. Let's say you were living in a consistent war, right? Let's point even a country out. Let's say
Afghanistan,
Syria,
constant war.
Afghanistan, Afghanistan is a perfect example, right? All that time, 20 years or so. Of war with
hundreds,
America.
I think.
Yeah.
I think they've been invaded in some form for like 200 years. Yeah.
Of course. So yes, I'm not saying there aren't outliers where there's a few people that think about this stuff, but I'm saying as a society, they've objectively stuck to Islam, really and truthfully, and they've stuck to Islam because there's no time or money, there's no comfort, there's no position of there's no alleviation to just be living in comfort and then thinking, well, actually, what if? Have I got time to sit on my butt and start thinking about these stuff as a society? Yeah. No, because we need to figure out when the next meal is going to come.
Yeah.
Do you understand? And that's the
but
same.
I think there's another ingredient needed, not just that, because I would imagine that like the Maasai people, they have time to chill, right? You can imagine that as soon as the sun sets, they can't do much, right? If they just got their fire to see, like, it's going to be difficult. That's their time to chill, right? And connect with family and this and that. So sometimes, you know what it's like, bro. Rural societies actually do have quite a bit of chilling time, right? Yeah. Depending on time of year and stuff. I think the added ingredient that causes this is education or like academia. And academia meaning the pursuit of knowledge for the sake of it. Yes?
Yes.
And
yes.
in excessive philosophizing and thinking about things, that plus having all the free time and all that might lead to this.
So think of like Sigmund Freud, right?
Yeah.
And I remember Sigmund Freud a lot because
went to school together.
Yeah, me and him back in the day. No, but I did do psychology for like 3 years.
Yeah.
And I just remember like thinking, okay, this guy's throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. In a sense, that's what academia is, though, because what it is like we would think that as Muslims we have an objective truth. We try and get as close to that truth as possible. Okay, and our baseline is going to be what the Islam teaches us, right? So like if we come across something that we think is counter to what Islam says, then we're going to be like, well, I must be wrong somewhere. I need to figure this out, actually, because Islam is the objective truth. Let's say, for example, human evolution. All right, we could go with like evolution in general. We could say, well, there's nothing necessarily objectively saying that animals couldn't have evolved, etc. So that might work. Okay, let's continue that. Humans, though, there may be evidence here that humans evolved. Well, that doesn't line up with the Islamic reality. All right, throw that one in the bin. Okay.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm trying to say? But if you don't have that objective truth to base yourself off, you're just throwing stuff on the wall, and whatever kind of thing you think lines up and what people kind of start rallying behind, well, that becomes the truth for that particular period of time, you know, until something else comes along or some other pioneer with a grand idea comes along. And let's be real, not every single pioneer in science and in history was well accepted initially. They all had their objections and they all had people, but generally they do develop communities and cults around them that then raise that idea to become the dominant sort of on the hierarchy. I came across a clip which I wish I could find. It might even be in my like tweets of like, it is actually. Can I play this? Exactly the clip I was looking for. Wow, look at that.
Is it from the documentary?
No, but it's just about someone talking about science and peer-reviewed papers and stuff.
Okay.
Don't believe.
So let's bring this. I don't know where it's from.
People talk glibly about science. What is science? People coming out of a university with a master's degree or a PhD, you take them into the field, and they literally don't believe anything unless there's a peer-reviewed paper. It's the only thing they accept. And you say to them, but let's observe, let's think, let's discuss. They don't do it. It's just, is it in a peer-reviewed paper or not? That's their view of science. I think it's pathetic. Gone into universities as bright young people. They come out of them brain dead, not even knowing what science means. They think it means peer-reviewed papers, etc. No, that's academia. And if a paper is peer-reviewed, it means everybody thought the same, therefore they approved it. An unintended consequence is that when new knowledge emerges, new scientific insights, they can never, ever be peer-reviewed. So we're blocking all new advances in science that are big advances.
We'll leave it at that.
That's deep, bro. That's deep.
See what I mean? So think about that in terms of the modern status quo, right? Let's say I'm a scientist or I'm some, whatever, and I go out there now and I go, well, actually, there's this issue with human evolution that I've come across, right? Here's my research. Here's my findings.
Yeah.
Well, is it peer reviewed? No, it's not. Well, bye-bye. Because it's against the status quo, right? Now, what people are doing in terms of, in the Muslim field, like we probably don't have many in the Muslim field right now that I know of, that kind of using Islam as a baseline of science. I'm sure there is, I just don't know about them. But not on like a popular level that the world knows their name, or at least the Western world knows their name. So who's going to challenge it? Because really, what the Enlightenment did is removed religion from the West completely in terms of academia. So now you've got no people using religion as a baseline in the Western world to propel or to navigate their scientific research. So then you've got absolute chaos in the West, which is why, number one, I value the work of like people like Sapiens Institute and other da'is and stuff that try and bring Islam to the forefront of these kind of fields, whether it's philosophy or psychology or whatever. But it also means that maybe in the future, Allah knows best, but I see the Muslim world as a coiled spring. I really do. I see it as like, yes, there's been hardships. Yes, there's been war, hasn't there? There's been literal theft of knowledge, theft of resources, theft of all sorts by the West but the geopolitics, but the interpolitics of Western countries right now, they're all kind of like this at each other's sort of throats with a lot of issues, whether it's America with this right-wing, left-wing ideologies that are clashing all the time. Even you can see that clearly in the Matt Walsh documentary, or like, Britain, for example, with this constant sort of Labour versus Conservatives, blah, 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 blah. In a dictatorship where this doesn't necessarily have to happen, and Islam can still kind of function, Muslims can still function within Islam.
As the baseline.
Then you've got coiled springs of societies that are just getting on with stuff. Like my dad used to always say, like, the one thing Muslims need to do, and he used to say this all the time, he spoke mainly about Tunisia, because obviously he's Tunisian. He would say, look, Tunisians just need to shut up and work and keep their head down, for 100 years. Like, that's what they need to do. He goes, that's what China used to do. He said to me, my dad, subhanAllah, may Allah have mercy on him, he said, he goes, I remember when I was at school as a young boy, and we would collect money for China at school, for charity. And he goes, now look, now this is what he used to say. And he died at 66, so let's say if that was 50 years ago, really. He's saying around 50 years ago, he used to collect money in Tunisia, in North Africa, for kids in China because of starvation and God knows what was happening.
Yeah.
And he said, like, that's what you've got to do. He said, what China has done, and obviously everyone's got their opinion on what China has done, but his perspective, what China did was that for 50 years, they just put their head down and kept working, and work. And obviously it's workhorse culture, and maybe borderline workshops and slave labor at some points, but the principle is they just shut up and worked. They weren't necessarily interested in like global wars and global this and whatever and all this other, all these ideologies that we're discussing now. When we said, do people have time to discuss all these identities and identifiers and all the self stuff? No, it was just work. And now they're like a dominant superpower, or at least on the cusp of being absolute global leaders, right?
Maybe that's another ingredient that causes this is individualism and the loss of, or the obsession over finding something special about you, creating something special, something unique, something that stands out. And I remember like Jalal talked about this in the course he did about liberalism, and he was just talking about how on one hand everyone's the same, right? Everyone's listening to the same music and wearing the same kind of fashion and all of that, right? Eating from the same like chain fast food restaurant. Everyone's the same. At the same time, everyone's obsessed with being different. But the way that they're trying to be different is in these very niche things. And it's like people are desperate to have significance. Maybe that's the right word.
I mean, the spearhead of this at the moment, at least, the individualism sort of argument, is the abortion debate. I really do think so, and obviously everyone can have their own opinion. But I would share another clip, but I don't really want to just put women on our thing if they don't need to. But essentially, one woman interviewed another on the street in America about the abortion thing, and it's just like essentially what they were asking them is different dates of like, at what point would you abort the baby? And they were pro-abortion, this person they've interviewed, this random member of the public. And they were just like, yeah, a woman's got every right over her body. It's like to do whatever with a fetus that they don't want. Okay, but at what point? From any point. She goes, I'm pro birth, or not pro birth, like
choice.
No, pro-choice, but also I can't remember what the term they used was. But essentially, they don't care about anyone unless they're born. I'm pro-born people or something. That's what they kind of said. Okay. That's what it was. Yeah, it was something like I'm pro-born, like people who are born. And then the interview was like, what about 24 weeks? Like they're quite viable. The baby's quite viable at that point. Well, no, the woman's choice. It's her body. It's her choice. And it's like, well, forgive me if I'm wrong, yeah. And I know there's outliers, and I know there's certain situations, and I know there's, people bring the rape argument and this argument and whatever. I'm not even going to address that because I've got no right to. I'm not a woman. Although that's always, I don't like using that as a cop-out for men not to talk about these things. I think men have every right because I was a baby once and I was in, a womb, okay? But the issue is individualism gone such to the point that actually just because that baby is in the body of a woman, well, it's my body, my choice. I'm the individual here, not the baby. But because that baby doesn't have a voice for themselves, they got no say in the matter, no matter what period of progression they're in, whether they're literally just a clot or whether they are fully formed and the due date is any day now. You know, and I don't know.
Yeah, none of this is very scientific or based in. It's like, again, it's all subjective because there's nothing scientific. There's nothing scientific about it. It's like, even if you say, the baby's heart beats at this week's, so therefore anything after that you can't. Even that is not scientific, because I think there's only two like objective ways of deciding. Yes, one is when the soul is in the baby. Mm-hmm. And one is when the baby even exists, like the what's it called, embryo even exists.
Yeah.
There's nothing other than that. Everything other than that is subjective. Yeah. Now, if you take the soul thing, then they don't even believe in souls, most of them, right? So that goes, they can't use that. And then if you take the just existence thing, embryo, then you can't agree with abortion at all. Or you have to admit that you're going to kill a baby. So this stuff, the trans stuff, it's not science-based, really.
When it comes to the abortion thing, and I'm not giving a statement here of what.
No, bro, I am, bro. I'm fed up, bro. I'm giving.
But I'll tell you what. I don't know if you ever came across that news article of that anti-abortion woman in America who was caught by police of having fetuses in her possession in a cooler, like a fridge or ice cooler.
No,
or something.
Man, what the hell? What's
now? That? Yeah, it was a few months ago. Now they're anti-abortionist, and when I heard that, I thought one of two things. I was like, number one, I only thought one thing, because I was like, this person's an anti-abortionist. Why would they have fetuses in there? Well, then I realized, actually, this is their protest tactic. They've obtained these fetuses, these aborted fetuses from some sort of hospital somewhere, and they're probably planning to use it as some sort of shock value protest of, look what you guys are doing, okay? Right? So that was my assumption of what the situation was. So what do? I go on Reddit, because it's all popular on Reddit and stuff. And Reddit is very well known for being very left-leaning and whatever, and that's kind of the demographic. I'm looking at the comments of these articles. What I was expecting, I swear to God, bro, I was expecting some people to be like, oh my God, you know what? I never realized that's what babies look like. They're aborting them at that age? Look how developed they are, etc., etc., etc. What we found instead was 100% of the comments I saw were all like, this woman is an absolute psycho. What the hell is wrong with her? What is she doing? Etc., etc., etc. Now, I'm not saying she isn't psychotic. I'm not saying that.
Yeah.
But actually, I saw, and I didn't mean to do this. Wallahi, I didn't mean to. I was going through Twitter, and it came up with images under the article. Someone was posting the actual images of these babies, bro.
Yeah.
And subhanallah, akhi, bro, I was so upset and I was shocked, and that's what got me emotionally invested in the abortion debate on some level, because maybe somewhere in my mind when I'd hear about this, I wouldn't. Number one, I'm not a woman. So I'm not. It's not something I've ever thought about or considered or whatever. Number two, I'm married. I'm not. It's not like I've been in a haram relationship and got someone pregnant and had to think about it and abort the baby, get rid of it. I've never been in those positions. But I saw these images, bro, of these children that looked no different to me than my newborn child. Like that's. I don't know if it was a few weeks difference. I don't know if. I mean, I was. How many? I think I was 2 months premature or something like that. July, August, September. Yeah, I was 2 months premature. Okay, I was 2 months premature. My wife, I think, was 4 months premature. Really, really premature as a triplet. All right. So whether it was a few weeks, whatever these babies, whatever stage they were, bro, they looked like fully formed babies.
Yeah.
Right. And they were. And I think the investigation concluded that this person had got a contact or some sort of empathizer, whatever, that worked at the hospital, and however they dispose of these babies after their abortion, she managed to obtain them, and I think was probably in the process of using them in some sort of protest or shock value or whatever it was. Yeah. Allah knows best. Regardless, what I'm trying to say is, I was just. It was like I was looking at a human being, bro. I was looking at a complete human being here, and maybe the shock value does have an impact there. And obviously, Muslims, we have our scholars who guide us in these matters, and that's where we should always go for these kind of matters. I appreciate and I understand that there are arguments about particular situations, particular circumstances. However, to just flat out allow it, like these people are saying, like it's a woman's right, and no matter what the situation, no matter what the condition of the baby, the development of the baby, it's a woman's body, it's her right. That's what I think is individualism gone mad.
Yeah, and what I meant by it's not science, I actually meant it's not logic as well, right? Because logic, it's the same thing kind of thing. Like you go through what's the word? A coherent process of thinking, right? That's pretty much what science is. It's what logic is, right? You go through, it has to be coherence, right? So if A equals 2, then B equals 1, whatever, right? And it has to be coherent within your argument. And it's like, okay, if you're allowed to kill a baby because it's not born and therefore you have ability over it, it doesn't have a voice, it can't struggle, then the logic, if you're being coherent, then you can go and kill anyone who can't resist. You have to admit that. And that's how Matt Walsh got some of these people in the documentary, where he's like, okay, you said A equals 1. Well, what if, B was this, and he caught them that way, right? And that's when they just run away or they just give vague answers.
So he's backtracking. The thing is, right, when he used the ableist argument, the trans-abled people, I think he kind of went a bit too far from home. When I say home, I mean too far from the sexuality thing, okay? Or the gender thing, because I think gender and sexuality are quite linked, because you have to be attracted to a certain gender. So that's why the link is. Whilst being trans-abled and able, like them saying, oh, well, that's a mental illness because it doesn't make sense to chop your arm off, that's causing harm. That's where they're too far away. The debate, which I discussed before, is like, well, at what point do paedophiles then use these same arguments? Because right now, paedophilia is not accepted. It's not. It's not accepted in law. It's not accepted in legislation. It's not accepted in not even rehabilitation. I don't want to use that word, but like, they say like, what is it called? Like conversion therapy and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Like they've just banned conversion therapy, or they're banning conversion therapy for a lot of places in terms of homosexuality, which is their prerogative. But obviously it still continues for paedophilia and those kind of sexual attractions. Okay. So clearly society is saying, well, paedophilia is unacceptable. Does that mean there aren't people now who identify as paedophiles that are using the same exact arguments that all these other non-traditional sexualities and gender whatever are using? No, there are. There definitely is. It's actually been reported on that there is. And I'm sure you could probably, I mean, I'm not advising anyone to go look for these communities, but I'm sure there are communities online, even if they're on like the dark web or wherever it is, that would use those arguments, that would say, I can't help it, just like you can't. So in 10 years from now...
how you even the fact that you're using the word community, that word was specifically picked, I'm sure, to make this into something it's not, and to humanize people. Like everyone's a human, but when you try and it basically makes it emotional, right? It's like the trans community or the gay community. It's like, no, they're not a community. It's like, if I like green and you like green, are we a community of green? No, that's not a community. So anyway, I'm just saying that the language was chosen specifically for emotional reasons, marketing reasons.
I think there's definitely like, the internet has got a part to play in that, because there are community identifiers now. There's groups of people. You could say everyone that listens to Mind Heist is part of a Mind Heist community, because they've all got this one thing link in common, and they could probably all be found in the same place. Like same thing with Reddit pages. Like you go on a Reddit page, any Reddit page, and you'll find, okay, there's this many subscribers to that particular page. That's on that topic.
The point is, though, that when you say community, you think of people all happy together and connecting and drinking tea together. You don't think of something bad, people doing bad things.
This is what I was saying in relation to the paedophilia thing.
Yeah,
it's I could, and he didn't do it, but I would have used that argument instead. I would have said, okay, where does paedophilia fit into this whole scenario? Is that an illness because it causes it, because it's got potential harm to the child? Yes, child in question. Right? Okay, I appreciate that. What if they're not? What if they're not harmed? What if they're not harmed? Or what if?
Because if they can pick at age 4 that it won't harm them to become quote unquote become another gender, then why at age 4 can they not choose?
And also the arbitrary, ages of consent across America differ anyway.
Yeah.
So at one point it's a crime in one state, it's a crime in the other state it isn't. So what's that about? Like, why does that match up? Basically, I'm just saying, like, the justification of those feelings and those identities and those identifiers without any external help and support, because you just accept it for who it is, and that's who they are. I identify as such, and that is a fact. That's the issue we're talking about. So you open those floodgates for a lot of things. Like I said, at least in the UK, we've got the Equality Act that kind of defines it at this stage just as gender reassignment. But then when do you put in the wolf people? The furries, the people that identify as animals? Well, that's got to be another thing, because at the moment we've only got gender reassignment. So maybe in another time we're going to have something identifying, or something identifier, a person who identifies as a particular thing. Okay, beyond gender, and it's interesting how we've fast tracked beyond gender straight into all of these options so quickly. So it was a man identifying as a woman identifying as a man. Then, like, rapidly we went into non-binary, all these other sort of different genders identify, and then it suddenly went into. Matt Walsh's YouTube channel has all sorts of examples of this, where he just reacts to TikToks and stuff of, oh, I identify as vampire now, so you have to call me vampire and vampire self and they and whatever, or demon, she demon, he demon. Like, these are my pronouns. So there's a pronoun, pick and mix really of anything and everything.
Basically, it's like once you open the floodgates of truth is subjective, very quickly it gets out of hand, doesn't it?
But it also, you find a lot of this with young people, because young people are impressionable, and that's like, oh, young people are impressionable. Everybody says that. Well, it's true. It's true. Young people are impressionable. I remember being young, and I remember being impressionable. Yeah. But not only that, it's that the competition between young people, like, remember the schoolyard competition of just trying to be cool and different, right? You're either trying to be cool, or you're trying to be different, or you're trying to be both. You either want to be cool and fit in with the popular kids, or you're such a loner or such an individual that you just do things like really individualistically, and you're so different. You're not like anyone else in your class. Well, how can I push that barrier further? How can I be the most different in my class? How can I just be so misunderstood by everyone? Because I enjoy that feeling of being misunderstood by people, because that's what kids are. You won't get into, like, the music I like the stuff I like. Oh, you're not going to handle my stuff, right? Oh, you like that particular band? Well, no. The band I like, nobody really listens to. It's a very like that kind of narrative, right? Of like, you won't get me. This is that on steroids, right? These identifiers is that on steroids, and it's opened the floodgates and given kids an opportunity to explore super individualism. I was a huge fan of things when I was younger. I was a huge fan of, like, Nintendo, for example, as a company, as a brand, as the games and whatever. But now, if I was growing up in this society,
you'd identify as a GameCube.
I would identify. Bro, that's it.
You could have the controller buttons on your face.
But that's it, bro. And the wolf person, when Matt interviewed Wolf, they said, well, when I was young, I was watching an anime, and I saw a wolf running across the screen in this anime, and I just saw that wolf, and I could see, it was like I was seeing myself in that wolf, right? But bro, like, when I was a kid, I used to pretend I was a kangaroo. Like, I used to jump around the house, and when I was a kid, I used to play with like toys and pretend I was like a big Godzilla whilst I was like smashing my toys in the bath. Does that then, like, that was me using my imagination? Okay, I was using my imagination. Now, if someone came along and went, yo, Mohammed, you know what? If you identify as Godzilla, you can be that. Hey, it's okay. Be that. And me being a young, impressionable kid going, oh, maybe I am? I feel like I'm Godzilla. Like, in the last 10 minutes, maybe I am Godzilla. Do you ever see those videos of people trying to turn into a Super Saiyan?
No.
You've never seen the viral videos of the early 2010s, bro, of people filming themselves on the old days of YouTube trying to go Super Saiyan. It's hilarious. But bro, if you could tell someone you identify as a Super Saiyan from Dragon Ball Z, then fill your boots, go be it. There was a time where imagination was just that, you using your imagination. And now what point does your imagination become your identity? Maybe I am actually this thing. Like my mind's telling me I am. I believe it. And if you can imagine something, you can be it. You know, then the world is your oyster, and the sky's the limit. You know,
I suppose to take it to the, how do you say it, philosophical, religious, whatever level. Basically, what this represents is humans trying to break out of the limits that Allah placed on us. Right? So it's like Allah placed on us limits that we are humans, we're not wolves. But they're like, no, I am a wolf. I will break those things. You know what I mean? Allah made us attracted to certain people. Oh no, I'm going to break that. It's like breaking all these kind of natural limits that Allah placed on us. And like, it's kind of like the Icarus thing, you know? It's like Allah didn't make you to fly, and you insisted on flying, and now you're going to suffer.
I was trying to get the verse that I was looking for, bro, in relation to this. Surah An-Nisa, that's the one. Surah An-Nisa, verse 119. And I will mislead them, and I will arouse them in sinful desires, and I will command them so they will slit the ears of cattle, and I will command them so they will change the creation of Allah. So that's the aspect I'm looking for in terms of Shaitan making that promise that he will cause humans to change the creation. Right, to change the creation of Allah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And whether that's physically or even just psychologically, right?
Messing with the
fitra, etc. Yeah. But yeah,
it's kind of. I feel like it's in line with, you know, the obsession with humans of not dying, of immortality. Wow. I feel like it's in line with that, because it's like, that is breaking the limit that Allah put in terms of everyone will die. And this is trying to break, you know, another limit of whatever, how you physically are, what gender Allah, you know what I mean? Breakthrough. Shaitan, or, you know, as the Satanists say, like, do as thou wilt, basically. Just break every barrier. And that's why even you find these crazy, like this Kinsey guy, or there are other people like him. You find they do all this, they get into this crazy sexual stuff. It's like they're just trying to push the limits in every kind of way, really.
Yeah. And we've got that thing ingrained in us where what we have is never enough, and what we can attain is never enough, and that which is forbidden is that which is attractive.
Yeah, sure.
Now that's something maybe personally fitra, and it's a test. It's there as a test for us.
Sure, yeah.
But society doesn't value order, and it doesn't value rules, because they always say rules are meant to be broken. I mean, I remember thinking this when I was a kid, like, do you ever play Assassin's Creed? Like, what's Assassin's Creed? You never played Assassin's Creed? Well, for people that understand Assassin's Creed, the first game came out maybe 2007, maybe a bit earlier before. But essentially, Muslims really liked it because it was like the first one was set in Jerusalem, and you're meant to be like possibly a Muslim, maybe not, I don't know. He's got an Arab name. His name is Altair, and essentially you're a part of a League of Assassins, right? And you're like part of this ever-long battle against the Order of Templars. Okay, the clue's in the name, the Order of Templars. Now, the difference is the Assassins have a motto, which is like, basically do whatever hell you want. That's their kind of motto, like live free. Freedom is their motto. The Templars are all about order and, you know, rigidness and stuff. And they, funnily enough, are the villains for the majority of the series. Okay, and it just shows you that even society has basically made it so that maybe it's like a post-Cold War era, you know, capitalism versus communism sort of thing. But any sort of rigidness and order and stuff is seen as oppressive and is associated. I mean, even the Templars in the games are associated with the cross, like that's their symbol. And then obviously the Assassins have got whatever hell their own symbol is. But it just shows you, like, they're even pop culture, like Star Wars, for example, like the Empire is all about order, and it's all about rules, and it's all about regulations and stuff. Whilst the rebels are the rebels in their name, right? They're fighting for freedom. They're fighting for freedom. Yeah. And America go into all these countries and dictatorships and go, we're going to give them freedom. We're going to force freedom down their neck. But this is it. Like, freedom is freedom. Freedom is the thing, right? Yeah. Now, growing up, I was definitely influenced by this just subconscious acceptance that freedom is right, freedom is good, freedom is the thing that we need to go for. Yeah, rules are meant to be broken. Yeah, and especially in teenagehood, like, yeah, I'll break the rules. Well, we have to be back at class for like 10 o'clock. I'm coming at 10 past 10. Screw the rules. But that's because society allows for that and it accepts that, especially in teenagers. It says that society just assumes that teenagers should be breaking the rules, like it's part and parcel of their nature, you know, and we've given a free pass to teenagers to do so, right? But no, that's not our worldview as Muslims, is it? Our worldview as Muslims is like, no, you have rules, and your rules are very rigid. And subhanAllah, it's a
Tilka hudud Allah.
Absolutely. Wallahi al-azim, and I cannot be more grateful to Allah. And the reason I say that is like, it's around the 10-year anniversary of me practicing, bro. How did I go from a worldview that accepted rule breaking as the norm and should be valued to literally
not wanting to start skateboarding?
Yes. Yeah. But also like worrying that like a certain like what was it, like worrying about, I just put my sock on but my shoe is on the other side of the hall. Do I take a step with just one sock on, or do I take my sock off? And because the Prophet ﷺ advised us to either have both on or not on. Do you understand? When it came to socks, shoes, etc., not to have this. Like, I've gone from complete that to like, I need to look up the rule for everything I do. And if I can't find it, then I'm going to be stressed out and I'm going to do my best. But if I know that I'm going against a particular rule, even if something that's so quote unquote petty, minor, petty in the worldview of the rest of the world, for me, it's a huge thing. Right? So when I sit there and I'm giving da'wah, or I'm talking to a non-Muslim at work about, stepping in with my right foot, or I'm educating my son who's putting on his shoes. You know, I keep using shoes, but whatever. My son putting on his shoes, and I remember seeing him, he was trying to put on his left shoe first. And I said, no, Suleiman, put on your right one. And then he has a conversation with me. But the kids at school, they eat with their left hand. Why can't... I'm like, well, they're this and we're that. And then, like, I'm teaching him these things because they're important, even though they're minor. Because you could call it only important to teach him the 5 pillars of Islam. So why am I teaching him about which shoe to put on first and that what foot to step out with and what? Like, this just shows you, actually, like, Allah's blessed us. This is when I truly believe, and I obviously we should believe, but I truly believe that the hidayah is from Allah. Because how could I have made that transition? How could I, without the fitrah guiding me, in the sense that Allah made me, inclined me to this? Because who, in their right mind, from a non-Muslim perspective, would say all this freedom, quote unquote, and I'm going to go and live in a very rigid life, or at least a life that I can be as rigid as I want to be. I can literally emulate the Prophet ﷺ. I can literally make everything the Prophet ﷺ did the rule of my life and my engagement. So I should try and copy and emulate him in every single thing. I'm going to live another man's life, so to speak. You know, on paper, in the eyes of freedom and capitalism and liberalism and all these isms, it doesn't make sense. But wallahi al-azim, the peace is there. That's where the peace is, isn't it? And you know it.
Yeah, definitely.
No, absolutely. Makes you think, bro. Makes you think.
And anyway. You know, even I remember reading that young Muslims, I think it was young Muslims in the West, when they decide to become like practicing or take Islam seriously, it was saying like a lot of them are turning to Salafi Islam. That's what I think. I don't know if the article was written by a non-Muslim or not, but they're saying they incline towards that. Why? Because it's rigid. That's what they were saying. Because they're seeking order. They don't want someone to tell them you can be one of 500 genders. They want someone to say you are male. Now shut up and get to work. Right? Yeah. No, of course. Some people start to crave that when there's so much open-endedness about what truth is, what reality is.
You don't, and it goes back to what we were saying earlier, like you're not wasting any brain space trying to think about what life could be. What is this? What is life? And all these existential crises that people have, especially people in these fields, especially from an atheistic point of view, in these fields of like discovering the universe and trying to figure things out. Like there's things that could just keep you up at night, you know? Whilst the things that would keep us up at night is, have I done enough good deeds? Am I going to Jannah or Jahannam? What is my akhirah? Because I know it's happening. and I'm going there.
Yeah.
Now, the risk comes for a Muslim in one whose iman is low and in one who dabbles in both sides of the fence, so to speak, to the point where their iman gets affected, and because they're dabbling here, they want the best of. I say the best. They want both worlds.
Fully.
I was going to say, they want both worlds. They want not the best of the dunya, but they want the dunya as well as wanting what the akhirah has as well. And there's nothing wrong with wanting the best of both worlds from an Islamic point of view, and you ask for that. But it's not up to you to decide what the best of the dunya is. It's Allah who decides what the best of the dunya is. So when you say, "Oh, I want to live my life and I'll practice the religion. I want the dunya and I want." Well, if you make that dua sincerely, Allahumma atina fid dunya hasana wa fil akhirati hasana wa qina adhab an-nar. What you have to relinquish is that Allah decides what's best for you in the dunya. Right? So if you make that dua and you don't get that particular job, well, that job might not have been good for you. Oh, no, but it's popular and everybody's doing that job. Oh, Forex trading, everybody's doing that. Or, whatever, gambling, new things that's coming up, or whatever. Everybody's doing that. I want to do that. I want to be part of that. Or I want to put YouTube ads on my videos. Or that's the best of the dunya, isn't it? That's what PewDiePie uses. That's what, all these YouTubers use. I want the best of the dunya. I want to do that too. No, it's Allah who decides where the best of the dunya is, and Allah will give it to you if you can make that dua sincerely, relinquishing your knowledge of the dunya and leaving it to Allah to decide.
That's a good point. It made me think of marriages. Like, imagine you're married, but you're thinking, I could have this kind of marriage. I could have this kind of husband, wife, this and that. Yeah. And that, I feel like, I don't know if this is like a Western thing or maybe it's not, but this whole thing of like, you got this idea for your ideal life, and it includes a certain marriage that's a certain way, and the whole Hollywood thing and all that, right? I just feel like my cousins in Algeria just never had that, and they're like, I just get married to whoever ends up proposing who's like good, and then they get married, and then the husband has some good things and some bad things, and then I just felt like they never had a sense of like, oh, my life could have been amazing compared to this. It's more like acceptance rather than looking elsewhere, if you know what I mean.
Maybe it's cultural what they will share, though, isn't it? Like, do they share their deepest and darkest thoughts?
Obviously not, right? Obviously not. But I did. And I'm not just talking about my family. I'm talking about different cultures compared to Western culture. I feel like there's a more of a, like, think of like these different castes in India. Is that how you say it? Caste. Yeah. So some people literally will be cleaning sewage or whatever. Living in the worst conditions. And they're just like, I'm this caste. Like, this is what I'm destined to do. Like, they're in the worst position, and they're accepting and they're saying that this is my thing. Like, they're not even looking to get a better life because this is my life. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but what I'm saying is that's the opposite of always thinking I could have had better. It's the opposite, right?
Although it does change though, because it bases on like what their understanding of the world is. Like you mentioned the caste system and you mentioned India, but some people may believe in reincarnation and like, on this turn I'm going to be this, but maybe next time I'm going to be something else.
The point is you can have people who accept the way things are. You can have that, and you can also have, no matter what they have, they're like, oh, but I could have that and I could have that. And I think that the two mindsets set you up for completely different type of life and etc.
Absolutely, bro. Oh, that's my Telegram buzzing, bro. I have to wrap up this episode because my kids are causing absolute chaos.
Really? I couldn't tell,
I can kind of hear them, but apparently one of them is very, very upset, and we need to wrap up, I'm afraid.
It is time to wrap up.
I think it is, isn't it? This has been really good. It's also been a lot of potential to cause chaos in the world, controversy. We didn't necessarily get into our controversial comments that we got on one of our clips, but maybe we'll talk about that next episode. It's not that controversial. It's not that controversial.
I'm wondering what you even mean, because I read them and I'm like, I thought people were just agreeing with us, so I don't know.
No, it is what it is. It's you can't make a podcast without breaking a few eggs, bro. It is the way it is. But I
love scrambled eggs, bro. I'm gonna have to read them again because I didn't find any disagreement. I'm gonna have to read again.
No, the ones I sent you, they weren't disagreement, but
there were other comments.
Yeah, I think there's new ones. Don't worry about
Mashallah.
it. Leave it. We'll leave it for the next episode, inshallah.
Okay, great.
This has been good. Thank you, Amin, for joining me on the Mind Heist podcast, and I'll let you sign out as a treat for you.
Okay, go to mindheispodcast.com for any links to connect with us and all those different things. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik, shadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Let us know. Send us an email what you identify as. It'll be interesting to know. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.